Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest Data Science Central webinar. This is Bill Voorhees, your host. I'm the editorial director with Data Science Central, and I'm also the chief data scientist for Data Magnum. So I'd like to start off our event today by thanking IBM Analytics for sponsoring today's event. IBM Analytics is an integral supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored to have them sponsoring our event today. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention and show our appreciation for some of our other recent sponsors, including Alteryx, Crowdflower, Tableau, Qubel, Dell Statistica, and Exaptive, to name just a few. Now, past webinars are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com, and if you haven't had an opportunity to view them, I encourage you to take a look. They provide some very useful insight into a wide variety of topics of interest to our data science community. Now, today's webinar is entitled Combining IBM SPSS Statistics and R for Competitive Advantage. And before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today we'll have a 1-hour presentation with two presenters that I'll introduce in just a minute. And we'll try and save about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A following the presentation. Now, our event today is being recorded and will be available on datasciencecentral.com later this afternoon following today's live event. Now, I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation, as we'll be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Murli Prakash and Alex Oftali of IBM Analytics. Now, Murli Prakash is a portfolio marketing manager in IBM Analytics' technical marketing team and currently leads the IBM SPSS Statistics product line. He's been with IBM for more than 4 years, and you can call him a data enthusiast at heart. Right from the day he graduated, he's been involved in various roles solving problems for real world using analytics. Now, he's recognized as a subject matter expert on predictive analytics, and he's worked on many clients across industries and geographies. He holds a master's in statistics and a master's in information technology from the University of Glasgow. Now, Alex Oftali is a nonprofit subject matter expert for IBM, where he specializes in helping clients understand and demonstrate the impact of business analytics on fundraising and engagement efforts of nonprofits throughout North America. Now, Alex's specific areas of expertise include predictive modeling, business impact analysis, survey design and sampling methodology, analytics training, and analytics implementation. Prior to working for IBM, Alex was director of analytics at a fundraising consulting firm. And there he worked with leading nonprofits in higher education, healthcare, community and the arts, helping them transform their philanthropic operations. He holds a bachelor's degree from St. Olaf's College and a master's of public affairs from the University of Minnesota. So Murli, Alex, thanks for being with us today. We're looking forward to your presentation. Now, in today's world, the data is flowing from all directions: social media, phones, weather, location and sensor-equipped devices, and more. And competing in this digital age requires the ability to analyze all of this data and to use it to derive decisions that mitigate risk, increase customer satisfaction, and grow revenue. Now, using a combination of proprietary software and open source technology can give your data scientists and statisticians the analytical power they need to find and act on insights quickly. IBM SPSS Statistics provides all the data analysis tools you need and integrates with thousands of R extensions for maximum power and flexibility. So in today's webinar, we'll show you how SPSS Statistics can help you keep up with the influx of new data and make faster, better business decisions without coding. Now, before we get underway, we'd like to learn a little bit about our audience and their experience with SPSS. So audience members, would you please respond and let us know whether or not you've had some experience with SPSS Statistics by clicking either yes or no on your screen. Thanks. Okay. And here we have the results. Well, about 2/3 of the audience has had some experience with SPSS, and about a third not, so that's an interesting finding. And so thanks for telling us about yourselves. Murli, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can begin as soon as you're ready to go.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill. Can you hear me fine? I'm okay?
Yes, just fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So, folks on the Data Science Central webinar, welcome once again for today's webinar on combining IBM SPS statistics and R for competitive advantage. So I think that Bill already introduced you to what the webinar is about, what's the abstract looking like, and that's exactly what we're going to discuss today. Now, without wasting any time, just wanted to quickly introduce, I'm sure Bill has already introduced, so this is Alex, okay, and you have his email addresses there, and we also have it towards the end of the presentation, so in case if you have any questions, you can contact us directly. So this is Alex. I'll just give it a second there in case if you want to make a note of it, if you have any questions later on, or you can even get in touch with the other platforms that we have, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so forth. And this is about me, and very similarly, same information. So if you want to make a note, we still have towards the last two, but in case if you want to make a note here as well, okay? Okay, I'll just leave that for a second. Okay, perfect. So folks, I think the whole goal of why we are here today is so I can explain it through the agenda that we have. So we're going to talk about a lot of welcome introductions are done, and we're going to talk more about what is exactly we're trying to solve today. What kind of problems are we seeing, what kind of data analysis that's going on today, and what are the new things that's emerging, and where you have to react pretty quickly, and how are you going to actually deal with it. That's exactly what we're going to handle today through the course of this presentation. Okay, and we're going to talk more about open source technology, R, and then we're going to talk about SPS statistics. We're going to talk about how we actually combine these two things together to make a powerful analytical combination. And we have a couple of examples towards the end in terms of really reflecting upon what we're going to talk about and how this integration really works in the real world. And towards the end, we're going to wrap up with Q&A, right? So that's the agenda for today. And just quickly moving on here. Okay. I'm sure a lot of you out there, you already said you have, almost 67.8% of people said they have experience with SPS statistics. So I'm guessing, very similarly, people have been using a lot of tools for data analysis, right? I mean, so far, if you really asked me about 10, 15 years ago, we really didn't care too much about data analysis, right? It's more about storing data, right? I mean, you have data, okay, let me get a database, or let me get some servers, let me store all this data, right? Now, analysis really, or making decisions based on the data sets, is really growing up too fast. If you look at in the last 5 years, the amount of data has been literally growing up too fast, very rapidly, and the decisions that you're going to make based on the data sets and the organizations believing in it and trying to make decisions is completely outstanding. I mean, the way things are today is completely in a different way. If you think about 15 years ago, now a lot has changed. Okay. In the same way, are we really considering the untapped resources? So what I mean by untapped resources is the new data coming in, right? So we know we have a lot of data in the databases, like transactional data. We have a lot of attitudinal data. We even collecting a lot of social media data. But there's also a lot of new data coming in, right? Are we really using all this data to make decisions? Now, even if you want to use it, how quickly can you implement that? How quickly you can embed this back into your organization's decision-making abilities? So that's where we're going to focus today, right? And why are we doing this? Because by tapping onto untapped resources, we're really looking at empowering everyone within the organization, no matter if you're an executive or maybe you're just a person who's actually trying to answer phone calls like in a call center agent. You're trying to really empower everyone within the organization by really tapping onto this untapped resources. And automatically, this is going to see the increased value within your business. The insights that you're going to find because of the new data, because of the influx of new data coming in, it's just that you're going to see the increased value within your business. Whether you're trying to increase your revenue, whether you're trying to increase customer satisfaction, whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to really find out the 360 degree of how you can actually make, you take your decision making level to the next level. Okay. Now, let me just talk about a bit about untapped resources data, which we are talking about today, right? The data becomes such an important topic. Are we really talking about all the data? I'm sure all of you are familiar with all of these kind of data sets, like interaction data. We have emails, we have call centers, scripts, we have notes, and we have everything coming in. And the same way, if you look at the other way, attitudinal data, we're talking about opinions, preferences. A lot of these are coming in from social media too, right? And if you look at the descriptive data, we're talking about attributes, characteristics, including geographic demographics as well, right? So we are looking at all this kind of data which has been stored, structured, and some of them unstructured, and the one which we're very much used to is the behavioral data. Orders, transactions, that's the transactional data which we usually get in, right? So these are typically the data we're trying to analyze, we're trying to make decisions on. Great. Now, have you really, infused or thought about the new kind of data sets coming in? A lot of mobile data coming in today, a lot of location data. People making decisions on the fly, people accessing your applications on the fly, or people actually doing something on the mobile or using the location data, or social media data where you're trying to be real time. Somebody trying to tweet, or how many tweets we got, how many impressions we got, or if you're looking at the Facebook, how many likes we've got this for post. What's happening with the real social media data, or atmosphere, right? Now, when I say atmosphere, we're talking about something like weather, right? Is weather really impacting my business? Can if I add or infuse the weather data into my business or into my analysis, will it really improve the way I make my decisions today? Right? Sensor data, that's really growing up too. A lot of people are actually depending upon a lot of sensor data today within the companies, within the businesses, everywhere around. Now, I can give you a beautiful example. A bakery chain, right, typically collects a lot of transactional data. What are the food products I'm selling today? Who's buying what? That kind of a thing, right? When they did the analysis, obviously they'll find out, okay, this is the product which is going to sell more, that kind of a thing. Now, what the bakery chain did is they kind of infused the weather data into with their transactional data. For example, how's the weather today, right? Whether it's rainy or sunny or it's been snowing, that kind of data being infused with their transactional data. Now, what they were able to find just because of adding that new dimension to their transactional data is really worthwhile, because now they were able to predict the sales of their products, the food products which they usually sell, based on the weather. For example, if it's rainy, they exactly know they sold product A and product B more than anything else. Or if it's been sunny, they sold product C and product D more, than anything else. So just by infusing the weather data back into their business, they were able to predict exactly the sales about, of their food products based on the weather. So you could imagine that. Now, because of that, they were able to increase the revenue, okay, one thing, because they exactly know how much sales they're going to do. And the second thing was about they reduced the food wastage because they knew exactly how many units or how much of quantity they're going to sell, based on the weather. So that is what we're talking about today, right? How we can actually infuse all these different new age data into your business, and you can actually make decisions, okay? And that is possible, when you really have a powerful analytical combination, right? So today, we're going to talk about integrating IBM SPSS statistics in R, okay? Now, generally, IBM SPSS and R have a lot integration story that's been going on for a while. It's been for years now, okay? So through this integration, literally, you can really find a lot of benefits. For example, you can have a beautiful interface. You can have outstanding data management and output management systems that you're going to have, and you can collaborate better with users, with other folks within the organization who are using, for example, R or IBM SPSS, right? And deployment, you have many deployment options that you can use as well. Now, through this integration, you can actually do it using IBM SPS Modeler, IBM SPS Statistics. That's the flagship products of IBM SPSS. But today, for this webinar, we're only discussing about IBM SPSS Statistics and R, how exactly these two integrate, and what you can do, because of this integration, how you can benefit because of this integration, right? Now, this combination of IBM SPSS Statistics and R can make all this happen, what I just discussed. Whether you want to introduce any new age data back into your business, whether you want to infuse, all this is not possible within a minute or within a day, right? But this is possible using this integration. If you really want to use this data tomorrow, you can do it, because there are packages of R which you can which you can deal with, and which IBM SPS Statistics supports through this integration. Okay, now I just want to quickly introduce, I know 67.8% of people actually said, their experience with SPS Statistics, but I just want to introduce, for the rest 37% about IBM SPS Statistics. IBM SPS Statistics has been in the business for more than 40 years now, okay? And we've been doing, tons of things in the last 40 years, literally to improve how people deal with data today, right? For example, you can quickly understand how your large data sets, behave, and with using a lot of advanced statistical procedures which we have within IBM SPS Statistics. And the reason why you do that, obviously to make quality decisions on your data sets about your business, right? And the other best part is, you can really use IBM SPS Statistics for, amazing visualizations. You can really go deeper into your data sets, the way you're going to represent, and the way you're going to see how your data sets are behaving. What is the story that it's telling you, right? So you can all see all that using IBM SPS Statistics Output Management System, or better visualization that you can have, okay? Including geographic spatial analysis, which we introduced about 2 years ago within IBM SPS Statistics. Now, at the same time, you also have, programmability. For example, if you're a no-voice user, if you're a beginner, you can literally use, the way you want it, like the meta-driven stuff, or if you're one of those advanced programmers, you can use the syntax levels, or you can integrate with R, Python, Java, or .NET as well. You can integrate those if you're pretty familiar with those programming languages. And the best part here is you can really deploy the results of IBM SPS Statistics or the way you want it. Okay, and that's the ultimate simplification of IBM SPS Statistics that we have. Now, without really wasting any time, I just had one more poll question for you guys. So, how many of you, do you have experience working with programming in R? How many of you really are R programmers who really program in R, who like to program in R? Who's been starting out right now? But a little bit experience, or just I'll leave that for almost. A couple more moments here before you could answer that question. Okay, so I think we should be okay to move forward. Okay, great. So do you have experience with programming in R? So we've got about 56.5% people saying yes, and 43.5% people saying no. So which is, which is pretty much good news. There are programmers as well. So the content which I'm going to discuss right here, it's going to help both. People who have said yes and people who have said no, and we're going to see that how. Okay, so why integrate? Obviously, one question you're going to be, having in your mind right now is, why integrate SPS in R, right? So the basic reasons are, very simply, empower every user. Because today, it's not like, every data scientist or every statistician, will know everything. Like, will know programming, will know R, will know literally everything to really make it work, right? So we need to really empower every user. And how are we going to do that? Using IBM SPS Statistics extensions. We're going to know more about it within just a moment, okay? And at the same time, obviously, every business really wants to improve their productivity, right? And how you can do that, using a lot of, advancements that we have done for the existing features, in the last few months right now of the integration between SPS and R. So you're going to see all that in just a moment, okay? Now, we're going to literally talk more about, why IBM SPS Statistics extensions, how this is, what are extensions? What are IBM SPS Statistics extensions, and how this is going to benefit you, right? Now, here, if you're looking into this particular slide, what is exactly we're talking about here is, SPS Statistics extensions are nothing but, it's just the application bundles, right? They are just the application bundles which integrate SPSS, R, Python, or Java code into the rest of the SPS Statistics product. So it'll just look like, it's coming from SPS Statistics, but underneath that, it'll be using one of these different programming languages. SPSS, it could be SPSS, or R, Python, or Java code. Okay, so you can think of them like the apps or add-ons. One example I can give you is like on your mobile phone. If you're using iPhones or Android phones, what do you do if you really need a new app? You just go to the Play Store, or you can you go to the store, right? App Store, and you can just go and you can choose what app you want. You can search for it, you can download it, and you can put it on your phone so that you can really work on it. Yeah, very similarly, even extensions are very similar, where you can just like apps or add-ons, you can just download them onto your IBM SPS statistics, and you can start using them, right? The best part here is, these extensions are absolutely free. Okay, it's basically available at no cost to all the current IBM SPS statistics users. So if you want to really download extensions, it's just free. Just go download them, and that's about it. You can start using it. Okay. Now the other thing is you can download and use someone else's extensions. It can be written in R, it can be written in any Python, any open source, right? But you can download and use anybody else's extension too. Or you can even create your own extension as well. Okay. So, and the other thing is, these extensions basically, they just look like, procedures within the product. Okay. And the back end, they might be completely running different syntaxes. They might be running SPSS syntax, or they might be running R or Python or Java code. Okay, so if you're using somebody else's extensions, it doesn't really matter what the code is running underneath. It's just that you don't know R, you don't know Python, you don't know Java, but through extensions, right, you're able to use that feature or functionality and without knowing what the code is running. Literally, even if you don't know what the code or programming language at all. Okay. Now, extensions can also contain new dialogues. It can contain SPS syntax. It can contain both. So that's the beauty of it. So if you're a syntax user, or if you're one of the graphical user interface users, you can use all this into combination, and you can take advantage of extensions here, right? So this is the beauty of extensions, right? If you really want to know more about the benefits, I can just give you a snapshot of what the benefits are going to look like in terms of extensions. Now, a lot of people, really want to leverage the open source. Even before I continue to tell that, so far the IBM SPSS and the statistics community, we have created about more than 100 product extensions, and these extensions have got about 500,000 downloads so far, right? That's amazing. Now, 500,000 downloads. You can imagine why. Why people are downloading it. So obviously, we can see a lot of benefits to these extensions. But the first thing is, you can leverage open source, right? Because these extensions can run literally R codes or Python codes underneath it with the custom dialogues, right? And you can use custom dialogues, and you can use, that we have within IBM SPS statistics, and these custom dialogues can run these codes underneath it, R code, Python code. So, and even if you don't know programming, imagine if there is an R extension you want to use, or for example, R package or R code, all you have to do is just grab the code, wrap the code within the IBM SPS statistics custom dialog, and that's about it. You can start using it, even if you don't know what the code really is doing, but you know exactly what the functionality maybe you want to use. Okay. Now, so if you're one of those believers within the open source community, all you have to do is, if you want to leverage the open source community completely, you can start using it. You can start using these extensions, right now. Okay. Now, the second thing is, you can really, consume all the, add-on procedures without programming. For example, imagine if you're one of those who actually answered no, do you have experience in programming in R? So almost like, literally close to 50% said no. Yeah. So basically, I would say maybe one of the reasons you don't have time to learn R or Python, what you can do is, you can run all these different codes, R, Python code, within these extensions. You can install extensions, written in those languages with just a simple point and click interface, and that's about it. Right? So you can easily build an extension and share. And for example, imagine if you're one of the programmers, okay, and maybe your colleague is not a programmer who doesn't actually use R, you can just create an extension within no time, and you can let your colleague use this extension, even if your colleague doesn't know programming. Okay, so that's exactly what extensions are doing today, right? You can leverage the open source community completely, even if you don't know programming. Even if you know programming, you can be great by creating these extensions, and you can let the other people within your organization use it. Okay. Now you can also see there we've said automate common SPSS syntax. For example, if you're using SPSS statistics, okay, and then if you have a lot of common SPSS syntax stacks that you usually use, you can run or you can turn the syntax into extensions within a minute. All you have to do is put the syntax in custom dialog, and that's about it, and run it. And these extensions are done. So basically, you're able to run, that job which you've been automating for long enough now, just by using custom dialog. It's fast, and it'll save you time. Okay. And lastly, one other thing we've used is customize SPS statistics. So you can customize SPS statistics the way you want it. For example, imagine there's a procedure that you've been running. You can create this as a custom dialog within no minute, within a minute, by creating an extension. So if you're using a lot of procedures, you can do all that, by just converting them into extensions within a minute. So I think all these actually will make sense when you really look into more about how this is really done. Okay. So probably Alex will walk you through on that as well. So one other slide which I wanted to show you before I pass it on to Alex is, this is the IBM SPS Statistics Extensions app. It's just like your Play Store kind of a thing, right? Now, all you have to do is just go to the Extensions app once you have SPS Statistics, of course, and then you can easily browse, download, and upload, update and remove the free product extensions based on SPSS, Python, or syntax. You can just go, and there are a couple of filters too, if you based on the language, based on the category you're searching for, and you can find all the extensions which you really wanted to use, and then you can download, you can start using them right now. Okay. Now that's what the Extensions app looks like on the right-hand side screenshot. Now, from here, I'll just pass it on to Alex to just continue the story of why the integration between SPSS and R, and also he's going to show you some beautiful examples. Alex,
Great.
over to you.
Thank you, Murali, and very excited to be speaking to everyone today. I'm very fortunate in my job with IBM that I get to do a lot of travel and presentations to a lot of different crowds and audiences. And when I meet people for the first time, I don't usually like to ask people, where you're from or what do you do. I like to ask people what they're passionate about, because usually you get a more interesting answer, a more personal answer. It's a great place to start a conversation. So obviously, this is kind of a one-to-many conversation. I can't ask you what you're passionate about, but I can share my passion. And my passion is using technology to create insight. Okay, so I have a background in statistics. Obviously, I work for IBM, and I deal in technology all day long. But these are not the things that drive me. They interest me. But what I'm passionate about is how we can use this technology, use these tools to create insight. And Bill at the top mentioned some of my background in the nonprofit space, and I appreciate that. But I think Murali also showed a slide that I used to work for a place called Gallup. If you're in North America, you probably know them. We do a lot of counting of things, and I used to be an economist for the state of Minnesota. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different experiences, and the common thread for all these beyond creating insight is SPSS technology. So I've been using this technology for almost 20 years. So that's kind of my native, I guess, analytics language. And my secondary analytics language, about 5 years ago, I started to pick up R, and excited to be here to kind of share some ideas. I have kind of a fundamental example so that everyone gets their arms around it of how you can program and leverage what's out there in the open source community and combine it with R. And so when I talk to people every day about kind of this ability to combine these software packages, I like to really focus on, what are the strengths that each one of these software tools brings to the table. And so certainly SPSS has a lot of well-developed features and capabilities. Specifically, if you're familiar with something like custom tables and reporting capability, its ability to process very large volumes of data, some of the add-ons like natural language processing technology. Those are some real strengths of SPSS. R, there's a lot of dynamic stuff. So, Murali did a great job kind of outlining, all the new sources of data. And so, we at IBM SPSS, because this is a built, polished, developed product, it's hard for us to stay on top of new data streams that come out every few months, right? The new app, we're capturing new stuff all the time. So the open source community is much more timely about staying connected with that. So that's one area that R does great. And R does great, ggplot, some of the visualization capability, and R is fantastic too. So that's how I like to think about this kind of partnership and our ability to combine these two. Again, I've been coming at this from a long-time SPSS user who learned R, but certainly, excuse me, I think if you're an R user, you can find a lot of benefit kind of approaching this the other way. So the first thing I want to kind of walk you through is an example of a custom dialogue extension that one of my colleagues built and I've since rebuilt and I actually did as a little bit of a pro bono analytics project for a business here in Minneapolis where I live. So this idea of, for those familiar or those not familiar with SPSS statistics, there's two main functionality interfaces. One, you could type things out using SPSS syntax or SPSS command language like R or Python or base SAS. It is a kind of a proprietary language, so there's some similarities, but we have our own specific syntax. Or most of our users, I would probably say 75%, do most of their work using the drop-down interface. So maybe more similar to like if you were in Microsoft Excel or some other products using a drop-down tool of selecting dialog boxes to run series of functions and commands. So what Murali's been talking about, what I'm going to share with you shortly, is how we can take and leverage, in this case I'm going to leverage some R syntax, an R package, but you can create it and build it into a very simple, easy to use, repeatable SPSS command that you can use yourself, or, and Murali mentioned this as well, you can create something to share with other users in other users that may not have programming experience. So I did that when I was at Gallup. I created a few R extensions that I was able to create and deploy to other people who didn't know R, and so they were able to access that functionality without having to have necessarily the background that he mentioned. So I know he's been referencing this predictive analytics community, but we strongly recommend everyone check this website out. It's developer.ibm.com/predictive analytics. And when you're there, there's a lot of different features. Note that this ability to do extensions in SPSS statistics is available to anyone. Murali, correct me. Is it anyone with version 19 and up? Is that correct?
Yeah, version 18, 18 and above.
Version 18 and above. So the current version of SPSS statistics is statistics 24. But this is available for anyone version 18 and above, and if you're running SPSS Modeler, version 16 and above. And so just a few kind of housekeeping items. You're going to want to go to this website. There is obviously, if you're going to want to run R, you want to download the most current version of R on your machine as well. And on top of that, you need to install an extension that you can simply download here. It's obviously free. So you want to download, you want to get R, I think 3.2.4 is the current R version, and it downloads the extension between SPSS and R. And so what this will do, it will also cover Python if you download Python as well. So anytime you're running an R command in SPSS, it points to R, runs a function or whatever you're calling it to do, and pushes the results, whether it's data or output or a transformation or a graph, back to the traditional SPSS statistics output. So that's the website that's there. And then there's also as Murali mentioned, I think this is coming up on 200 actually, pre-built extensions. I'm going to show you one of them today. This is kind of my, from my years of consulting, my consulting tip of a regression that I believe everyone should use or everyone would get value out of. And that's available to download today. And so if you have R and the utility extension to point to R, you can start running these extensions in less than 5 minutes. So the first example that I want to talk about is Facebook comment data. So what I was actually did is comes from a project I was actually working with. Again, I mentioned before I live in Minneapolis, and I'm a big jazz music fan, and there's a pretty famous jazz club here, and I know some of the people that work there, and they actually have SPSS statistics. They have a copy, and they try to do marketing analysis to try to see what drives revenue and drives sales, et cetera.
Okay, so now that I shared with you kind of the business use case, right? So the jazz club here in Minneapolis, where I live, and they wanted to try to assess and understand the impact of social media, which is their primary and really their only outlet for advertising their shows. They wanted to understand a simple business question. How does this impact sales, or does it impact sales at all, right? So, as I mentioned, they have a copy of SPS statistics, and I promised that I could help them with this. So this would require, obviously, leveraging R, because natively statistics cannot engage with Facebook data. So what I did was I leveraged some R and some other Facebook content, statistics content, to help them cull this data and then combine it with another program I'm going to show you shortly to determine what kind of impact, if any, their advertising effects have on sales. So as you can see from the data set that I have open, I have a range of dates starting on June 6th, and this goes up through just a few days ago, September 5th. So these are the dates, and this is the count of tickets sold by date. So they would do daily content, posts, videos, shares, etc., to try to drive interest and eyeballs to their Facebook page, and then push that back to their ticket selling page. So we wanted to say, how much impact and stickiness does this work have? So to do that, I actually built a little program for them with some of my help from some of my IBM colleagues who have done some of this work before. And what this allowed us to do was pull the Facebook interaction data, I call it interaction data, from their specific page over a specific time period, and then which I will then merge with the ticket sold data to run some additional analysis to see what impact, if any, their advertising and social media efforts have on ticket sales. So this is currently sitting in an SPSS syntax window, but if you notice, up above, for those of you that know SPSS syntax, is that beyond this first step, the rest of this is not native SPSS syntax language. Okay, this is R. So this is what we've been talking about, your ability to extend and leverage the capabilities through SPSS statistics using R. Okay, so again, as I said, natively SPSS statistics does not have a program that will allow you to harvest Facebook data. R, however, does. Someone wrote it. It's called R Facebook. It's a great program. You can find it, as I mentioned, on the CRAN library site. So pull that down, install R. Takes a matter of minutes, but you can come back to this statistics interface, okay? And I could pull a portion of that R Facebook package, which I've done here. And if you notice this first command that I've highlighted, begin program R, if you have statistics on your machine, if you have R on your machine, you've installed the utility function, this first command actually makes statistics point towards R, and then processes will be run through R until you get to the end program command. Okay, so I'm not going to go in depth through all the R code here, but I do kind of want to point this out so you understand what we're looking at. What's also very interesting is you can use R code and other languages together. So I use R up above. This is what's going to allow me to pull in the appropriate statistics or Facebook data, Facebook interaction data. But then down below, I just wanted to get a quick summary. I wanted to graph the results in SPSS. So then I'm back in SPSS traditional syntax. So this is the syntax I used through the chart builder, right? So I built the chart and I saved it out. This is kind of how I want to display the summary information. So you can actually have, or in this sense, the syntax becomes, or the SPSS becomes multilingual, okay? So we can run R, we can run SPSS statistics, we can even run Python, all three languages together to execute functions. So I built this for them. This is what I was able to do my original analysis. I showed it to them. They thought, they liked the results. They were very interested by the insights I was able to find. But this was not a functionality that they felt comfortable with. Okay, so they were like, oh, we're going to open this up and we're just going to delete, one thing, and it's not going to work anymore, or, I don't really know this language, this doesn't work well for me. So I said, fantastic, so we're leveraging R, you're using statistics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build an extension for you that you can install and run again and again and again, and this will allow you to be able to access this data from your Facebook page whenever you want and pull it immediately into a statistics file. So let me show you what building an extension looks like. And this is kind of the second step for utilizing R to create a competitive advantage. If this interface looks confusing or uncomfortable to you, and it may to some, we can build this out to have more of a traditional drop-down look and feel of SPSS statistics that we pretty much all of us are very familiar with and feel very comfortable with. So again, some ideas are those with a little bit more programming experience can create functions or programs in SPSS statistics, and they create an extension, which I will quickly show you how I built that out and share that with your colleagues so they can run the very same somewhat sophisticated program that you're running, but to them it looks like a couple radio buttons and away they go. So I want to be mindful of your time today, so I'll kind of very quickly go through the process to build this extension. This is a very simple extension for us to build, thankfully. I'll give you kind of the basics of what I did. So again, this is our original data set. I have date and I have tickets sold, and I want to be able to integrate what I showed you before, this syntax data, which calls on R to call on Facebook to pull down the interaction data, number of likes, number of shares, number of comments, right? And then graph that data out so I get a visual look of what that looks like. But I want to be able to do this in a very kind of easy drop-down interface. So to do that, I simply go to the Extensions menu, and I go to Custom Dialog Builder. Okay. Open this up, and you should get something that looks like this. So just to give you kind of a quick layout, we can build any kind of dialog box that you want. Dialog box meaning a drop-down menu item, traditionally seen in SPSS statistics. Obviously, the easiest way to engage with the software. You can build that, and you can add in any number of items and to kind of build it on this graph part on the left. I'll show you that in a second. And on the right-hand side here is where we'll actually put the syntax, right? So this is where we're going to put in the actual information behind the scenes. So we're going to run the little radio box or the dialog box here, but it's going to be running the syntax behind the scene. So when I mention this is very simple, it's because we only need 3 basic data elements. We need the first date. We'll call that first date. So because we want to do a date range to look at commentary, and then we'll grab another date control field, and we'll call that last date and last date space. And the final thing we need is we need to come up with the page or the page ID or the page URL, right? So facebook.com/ Dakota Cooks in this case. So we'll call this Facebook page ID. So there we go. So from an interactive perspective or interaction effect, from when I designed this and build this out, all people will need to do will be able to enter in a first date, a last date, and then the Facebook page ID. Obviously, again, you need token access through Facebook to be able to pull this data down. And so then once you do, let me go ahead and grab this syntax here. I'm just going to copy and paste this. So a couple things I need to do here. I need to make sure that I am lining up my syntax values. So I need to line up first date needs to be start date per the syntax here. And this needs to be, last date needs to be, of course, end date. And then we call the page, get page is page ID. Okay, so what this means is whatever date I put in, whatever date is the first date, whatever date I put in is the last date, and whatever date or whatever Facebook page ID I enter into any one of these boxes, it'll automatically transfer that over to the syntax for us to be able to pull that data. So let me give this a name. Let's call it Facebook data. And give it a menu location here. So this is very nice. I could choose where to put this within my statistics menu. So I'll put it under the data tab. Why not? We'll call it Facebook data. And put a little separator below it. Why not? And hit OK. So this is where I always know where it falls in the menu. So you can choose which menu it goes under. Okay. I'll go ahead and save this, and I'll just save it to my desktop. And I'm going to go ahead and install, and we'll call it Facebook data demo. Oops. Yes. All right. So I can close this, and I can close this, which I have saved. And now I can go to data, Facebook data, and let's put in a date range. Ooh, not 20. Let's go back to what's my start date? 6/06 through 9/05, and Dakota Cooks is my Facebook URL. And let's hit OK. All right, so ran that program over the dates, so about 3 months, so from June 6th up through September 5th here, and now I have the likes, comments, and shares data pulled from that specific page over that time period. Okay. I also, because I wrote into that syntax, I wrote this is a Facebook, or not a Facebook, a SPSS statistics graph, so we can see the number of comments in blue, the number of shares in green, and the number of likes in kind of this light tan. So it looks like likes are kind of our dominant activity. And this was the second interaction effect. So again, our Facebook package was pulling in this data, and then I also put in a custom chart builder, which I built through here, and I saved the syntax out to build a line chart in here. I'm not going to go through all of this for you. If you're familiar with statistics, you know this very well, but I also had it build this data over that date range so we could see what it.
So the other thing I want to show you very quickly, another version of an extension, a pre-built extension, one that I didn't assemble, like with the Facebook extension. But this is, so we get to this idea of, okay, now I have a little bit of social media data. I know I'm putting up stuff daily, what's getting shared, what's getting commented, who's posting what, how's it sticky, how's it traveling, and then how can I relate that to sales? So there's a R package out there, and it's also an SPSS statistics extension package called RelImp. So this is my consulting tip. Not as many people use this as I believe should. This is a relative importance, also kind of Shapley value regression. So this is a great regression package out there. It's not native to statistics, so it's not naturally built in, but you can install a package that will allow you to do it. But basically, this is a great way of running a regression when there's a lot of multicollinearity between variables. So obviously, for sharing, posting, and liking, those are three different actions, but there's a lot of overlap and they're very tied together, right? Or it'd be like if you're doing survey work, which is to do a lot of Gallup, and you'd ask people, 3 different questions around the same topic. Those are individual questions, but there's a lot of multicollinearity going on because we're talking about the same topic. So this idea of a Shapley value regression is fantastic because it allows us to not only estimate how much do likes, shares, and comments explain the next day's ticket sales, but also how much did each one of these things independently contribute compared to the others.
So that's the basics of the extension that I built for the folks at the Dakota. So now ongoing, all they need to do is come to the data menu, pull up Facebook data, put in a new range, and they have access to the data from this page, and they can pull it down. So they can do ongoing harvesting of this data and analyze it in conjunction with ticket sales or other information, other kind of KPIs that they have for their restaurant to really understand and get a sense of what impact this data or this social media effort has on people coming out to their club and to their restaurant. So now that I have the Facebook data here and I have the ticket sales data, I'm going to show you the second step that I did, which also leverages our program, which allowed them to really assess the impact of social media data on ticket sales, or what kind of relationship does it have. So first thing I needed to do was just do a simple data merge by date. Go ahead and do that there. So now I have tickets sold, and then I have likes, shares, and comments per day relating to those tickets. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So there is from my time when I was at Gallup, there's a specific technique called a relative importance measure, otherwise called a Shapley value regression, which is a great statistical technique if we want to measure. It's kind of like a regression, but it's actually more like maybe a ANOVA or a MANOVA, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, here's our outcome on X and X a day, and looking at this time period, how much, without trying to strip out the multicollinearity, how much of the change in sales from 27 to 8 or 8 to 13 or 13 to 27, how much of that can be explained by the likes, by shares, by comments, or how much is explained by some other data or information we do not have. So it's a great technique when we have a lot of explanatory variables that have a lot of correlation or natural relationship with each other. So it's a great technique and regression to use. It is, however, not native to SPSS statistics. So what I was able to do is, I'm going to show you this website here very quickly. So I already showed you building a custom extension using our syntax and SPSS syntax, and then loading it into the data menu in statistics for my friends in the Dakota so they can leverage that. Now what I'm going to show you is leveraging an already pre-built extension that you can download so you can leverage the relative importance today. So that whole process of building that dialog box, pasting in the syntax, finding the target syntax of start date, end date, page ID, that's already been done for you in this case. So I already have this installed, but I'll just kind of show you the process to do it. So I'm doing the relative importance or RelImp regression package. Of course, this is at this predictive analytics hub that Morali and I have been talking about. So all you have to do is find the package you want, go ahead and download. Oops, let me go back one. Let me download the zip. There we go. And let me go ahead and extract. All right. And you're going to find this SPE file. So SPE is an extension for, or that's the extension handle for installing an extension. Okay, like .sav is a file, or .spo is an output. .spe is an extension. And so to install one, you literally go back to this extensions menu, install local extensions bundle. Come on. Relevant master. There it is. It says, I've already installed this previously. Do you want to overwrite? Sure, let's go ahead. And now it's installed. So as I mentioned, this is a great technique. I'm going to show you very quickly how to use this technique. So this is something that's already been built. Again, I'll come down here, regression, relative importance. So, I showed you before a very simple looking, Facebook extension that I built for you. It looks like this. Some of the nicer ones can look like this here on the right-hand side, right? This looks like any kind of native, well-developed Facebook or statistics functionality, excuse me. But this is actually running an R package, the RELIMP R package, RELIMP, which you can find on the CRAN website. So I'd recommend checking that out. Now I need to be in the right data set. I need to be in the tickets sold data set. Here we go. And we'll go to the regression, relative importance. So I want to predict tickets sold as a function of likes, shares, and comments. And with the Shapley value, I'll show you this in a second, I want to scale these measures to 100, display the ranks, and plot relative importance. So without getting too deep into the Shapley value coefficients, essentially what this will do is like a traditional, for example, linear regression. It'll tell me how much of the change in ticket sales can be explained by the data I've included in this model, in this case likes, shares, and comments, and how much cannot be explained, right? So kind of like your adjusted R-squared value. But then it breaks down that adjusted R-squared value into how much of this R-squared, or the amount that we can explain, can be attributed to likes, how much can be attributed to shares, and how much can be attributed to number of comments. Let me close this graph. So in this file, you can see, so the R-squared for other predictors, which is what we included in here, is 0.3578. So roughly 35%, or give or take, of the change in ticket sales can be explained by our social media data. Okay, well, we have three components of that social media data. And so we have shares, likes, and comments. And so among that 35% that we can explain with the data, it looks like almost 3/4 or 71% of what we can explain can be attributed to shares, and a little bit less can be attributed to comments and likes, as you can see down here. So we have three types of social media interaction going on that helps us explain some of the change in ticket sales, when it goes up, when it goes down, but they're not all equal, right? So it looks like shares has the greatest impact, or in some sense might be the stickiest, if you will, form of content that we have that really seems to have an explanatory effect on the change in ticket sales. So and it's a positive coefficient, as you can see. So when our shares go up, ticket sales go up by quite a bit. That's our biggest specific driver that we can tell. And then if they go down quite a bit as well too. So my recommendation then from this was to create content that wasn't just likable, but to create content that people wanted to share, because that really seemed to have an effect. And then we come back in a couple months and test how this data worked. So again, so now I've shown you, how to build your own extension and install it in SPSS Statistics. I've also shown you how to come in and leverage some of the pre-built extensions from the SPSS Statistics Extension Hub that you can come in. This is a great website. There's a lot of stuff here. There's over 200 extensions, and they're free, in keeping with open source tradition. So I'd recommend everyone come check them out.
So those are some very quick examples. I know we had our contact information up at the beginning. I think we're going to have it up here at the end. So if you want to learn more about this, please feel free to reach out to Murali or myself. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Murali, who has a couple more closing slides, and then we'd like to turn it over for a Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. I think those were really cool examples on how to use extensions and how you can really benefit from the new age that are coming in, right? So thank you. And so folks, actually, what you can do is the next step. I'm sure if some of you not using SPSS statistics, you can try it for free, right? You can just type the link ibm.com/try SPSS, and that's it. You can download SPSS statistics and you can try it for free, right? Now, people who have SPSS statistics and who probably, trying or, thinking about trying these extensions, you can download or create your own extensions too. And how you can do this, you can visit the community that we have, Predictive Analytics Community. The URL is very simple, developer.ibm.com/predictive analytics. Okay, so you can even type Predictive Analytics Community on Google. I'm sure you can get there, right? Now, through the community, I'm sure you can find tons of content similar to what we've just showcased in the webinar. Okay, you can download extensions, you can create extensions, you can really play around there, right? And some of these, what we just showed as examples right now, keep visiting the community, and we will be posting these as, hopefully, demos in action, sometime later, right? But, there are tons of things that you can look at as well, very similar examples in the community already existing. So you can just go and watch some of these in real action that's happening on the community as well, okay? Now, otherwise, if you really want more information about SPSS and other stuff and how things really work, the integration, everything, you can really visit ibm.com/SPSS to find more information about it, okay? Now, the other thing of which I really wanted to introduce you is one of the flagship events that we usually have every year, which was formerly called as IBM Insight, in the last previous years, Information and Demand, and then IBM Insight. And this year we have something like the World of Watson, IBM World of Watson, okay, which is happening in Las Vegas, which is from October 24th, 27th. Now, this is where you can see a lot of these, what you just saw. That was just a glimpse of, what you can, do with data, what you can, what kind of analysis, kind of tools you can use, but you can do a lot more. This was just about 1%. 99% you can actually see all this in action in live, everything at the World of Watson, which is happening right in October, okay? So if you have time, just type in World of Watson. You can get to the link, or you can just, you can go and visit this particular page to know more information about the World of Watson itself, okay? So all this is just basically for about data and how you can actually make better decisions using the data, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about. Now, with that, we pretty much, towards the end, I think I'll pass it on to Bill for the Q&A portion of it. So, Bill, over to you.
Well, Murli, Alex, thanks for that excellent presentation. And we'll get started with today's Q&A session. And I want to thank the audience for their participation. We've had a lot of questions that have come in during the presentation, and we'll try and get through as many of them as we can in the few remaining minutes. And during this Q&A session, I'll leave up this screen, which has the contact information for Murli and Alex, if you'd like to contact them following today's webinar. So let's dive right in. Murli, Alex, the ability to use R in the context of SPSS is obviously very, very powerful. But are there limitations on what R functions I can use within SPSS?
I have not come across any to date. Murli, have you come across? I've used about 75 different functions. I mean, I suppose if you're using, I think maybe if you're using an R function that calls on another package's function, so that would be like kind of this like Russian nesting doll of software functionality, that might not work so well. So if you're having R access another analytics program to run something, and you're trying to run that through SPSS statistics, that might be a little bit too much of a chain, but that's the only example that I've come across or heard of that was a limitation. Otherwise, pretty much everything's open. You can build the extensions, or what we didn't talk about before too. If you don't want to build the extensions, you can actually just paste the syntax into an SPSS syntax editor, like our syntax menu, and run things from there as well.
Okay, well, thank you for that excellent answer. Now, here's a question that goes right to the heart of the issue, and boy, I'm waiting for your answer on this one because I know what I'd say. And that is, if a user is already proficient in R and uses, for example, Tableau for visualization, why do they need SPSS in addition to those skills?
You want to take a stab at this, Murali?
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's a good question because I'm sure a lot of questions have come by before as well, where we're talking about extensions and stuff like that. Now, when you're using, let's say, R, and you've been a proficient programmer, as you said, on R, and you've been using all the things that you've been trying to use. Imagine now, as I said, organization, it's growing. A lot of people are trying to, make decisions at the fly on their desk at the moment. And, and it's not easy for everybody to learn, for example, R programming, right? I mean, it's not, something which everybody can do. For example, imagine if you're supporting a department or if you're supporting a complete organization, on the data analysis or trying to help them make decisions, right? Imagine if you can actually provide them, there's a way where you can actually, they can put their own data, they can run just by click of a button, and they can actually view the results and make decisions just on them, right? And that is possible using extensions, even without knowing R programming, R code, anything within, those set of users, can actually make decisions based on what you can do, right? I mean, imagine if you have to run the R programming and then you have to do all this, that's completely not possible from where you're sitting. Now, that is just one other example. The other things that I can definitely possibly tell you is, you're not just creating, just by R as an open source, but the thing is you're actually creating a powerful analytical combination, right? You're trying to use the benefits of both, SPSS and R. SPSS has its got own benefits. For example, it's got the data management capabilities. You can actually, collaborate pretty well. For example, we have the collaboration deployment services where you can really collaborate with every user. We can run projects. Everything is possible within SPSS. So similarly, R as its own sort of benefit. So you can combine all these both, to really become this, analytically driven organization. So these are some of the things that I can really think at the top of mind. But I'm sure, Alex, if you have any, please add them.
Yeah, well, it just it's pretty well known that there is a kind of a lower threshold for processing volume with R, natively with R, than with statistics, for example. So that's why folks at the U.S. Census use SPSS statistics, which is one example to name drop somebody. So I know there's some memory and processing issues that are not. They're just native to kind of some open source technology too. So it depends on the volume you have, but definitely Murali's point of being able to share and deploy across the organization and empower other people to do work. If you feel like you're already well developed in R and you're doing your viz in Tableau, you don't want to do your viz in SPSS. If you're doing your viz in Tableau, that might work for you, but I think there's some other kind of reporting and processing technologies that SPSS has that I think it's worth exploring and using a free trial that Murali mentioned.
Well, Murali, Alex, thanks for some great answers to some very good questions. Unfortunately, we're coming to the top of the hour, and for those of you that have asked questions that weren't answered today, we'll be sending all those unanswered questions to Murali, Alex, and the IBM Analytics team so they can follow up with you following today's webinar. I have just a few quick announcements. If you'd please mark your calendars for September 13th, that's our next DSC webinar, which is how not to be wrong about visualizations in Tableau. Also, remember that today's taping will be available for on-demand viewing later today, and you can find that on the home page of Data Science Central in the Webinar tab, which is located at the top of the page. Well, this brings today's webinar to a close. And I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance and their thoughtful questions, and a special thanks again to Murali Prakash and Alex Ofterly and IBM Analytics for their sponsorship, and our speakers today for their insight into today's topic. My name is Bill Voorhees. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event. I look forward to seeing you all again on September 13th. Have a great day.